Hey everybody! So today I want to speak to you about the tree of life. Now, you're going to have to excuse me. I'm literally busy putting things in as I'm talking to you. I'm also having coffee. I am about to facilitate an online regression hypnosis session in about an hour from now. But I was ready, and so I wanted to share with you the information about the tree of life because I've been wanting to make this video and I didn't get around to it. And the tree of life in tarot is just profound. It is just, in actual fact, tarot is a pictorial representation of the tree of life. I want to tell you now what I'm talking about. Because this concept is sometimes very difficult to get, and I find that one of the reasons why it's sometimes so difficult to get is because I don't know, it's just I think the way in which it's sometimes presented is a little bit complex, but it is a complex sort of thing. But I'm going to try to simplify it for you. I'm obviously by no means going to tell you everything, because if I do and you are new to the tree of life, your head is going to combust. And I have to tell you, I've now been doing tarot for just like 20 plus years, and probably for the first 15 years, I would get sort of like anxiety when I see the tree of life. I'll be like, it's beautiful to look at, it's pretty and whatever, but it was too vast a concept for me. Wearing some silver that I left as I got it from a friend of mine, you'll find it just slightly off the point, but you will find that what silver is really seen as the mirror of your soul. I like to use it with my regression hypnosis sessions. You know, it's like a portrayal of who you are. It's really great for working through the deep-seated emotions. Okay, so having a solid cup of coffee, and then I'm going to get into the tree of life for you. So it is not imperative that you have a even an inkling understanding of the tree of life in order to do tarot and in order to do it really, really well. Now, just something that I want to make very, very clear here from the start is that when I speak about tarot, I'm speaking about Rider-Waite tarot, I'm speaking about thought tarot, I'm speaking about systems like Lenormand, I'm speaking about those sort of tarots. And when I say those sort of tarots, I mean tarot that is a depiction of the tree of life, because that is literally what tarot is. Now, you don't have to believe tarot, or you don't have to like sort of like believe the whole tree of life and everything like that. But I think it's a little silly if you're going to do tarot readings, you know, because, or let me put it like this, because then what happens, you start having the conversation with people, you say like, well, tarot is really founded on the tree of life, and I don't really believe in the tree of life, but tarot is founded on it. And I'm like, what are you doing actually, you know, even having a sense of familiarity around it? Of course, that's your prerogative. So let me quickly show you the tree of life. Where did I put this now? I put a bookmark in there. There we go. So first of all, if you're interested in just the tarot itself, this is a really good book. The Tarot by Sylvie Simon. And she has got two books that I think are quite nice. One is just the tarot, which is not this one. And then there's this one, which is the tarot. It's quite a nice hardcover. The tarot, art, mysticism, and divination. All right. You see, it's so powerful, it blocks me out. But this book really goes into a lot of information about the tarot. There is a beautiful depiction of the tree of life in this book, and I'm going to show it to you in a minute. And I put on a bookmark, and then I took the bookmark away. I think, sorry, just the one thing that I wanted to say is that when you look at all of this in the tree of life, the one thing that I want you to be aware of when you take a look at OSHO Zen Tarot, which I'm very, very passionate about. I've got a course about this online among some other courses. There are some links in the description for it. But the OSHO Zen Tarot, even though it says tarot because it's founded on the foundations of tarot, it's in many ways something altogether different. So when you have a very good understanding of the tarot, which I had at the time when Osho Zen Tarot came into my life, I tried to put Osho Zen, I tried to fit it into, you know, this tarot understanding coming from the tree of life, and my brain was just going poof, poof, poof. What are you talking about? Don't get this, not clear. All right, so even though Osho Zen Tarot is a beautiful, beautiful thing, I mean, it's beautiful. It will definitely help you if you have a very good foundational understanding about the tree of life when it comes to Osho Zen, but it's not compulsory. And you know, if you maybe start with Osho Zen and you're thinking of going into like Rider-Waite Tarot, you think of going to Thought Tarot. If I have to make a recommendation, you don't have to have Rider-Waite first before you go to Thought, but I will strongly suggest that you do, because Thought is a lot, you know. And just backing that up a little bit, so Rider-Waite Tarot was obviously founded or conceptualized by Arthur Edward Waite, and it was beautifully illustrated by Pamela Coleman Smith. You know, she had the nickname Pixie, quite an interesting character. And they all belonged to a movement called the Dawn of the New Age. Am I saying that right? Yeah. Golden Age, sorry. And so they were studying occult magic, occult understanding, occult practice, things that they were sworn to not divulge. Now, getting into that, some of you may be familiar with this book, the Book of Thought, and some of you may not, all right? But if you really want to get it, the Book of Thought is the book that you want to get. But the Book of Thought can also be quite a challenge, especially if you're very new to spiritual practice. So a lot of what is shared in the Book of Thought is honored by Rider-Waite Tarot, but not so much sort of like portrayed, so to speak, because, you know, there were some rules and things involved. All right. Whereas with Aleister Crowley, who was the founder of the Thought Tarot, you know, he sort of got to the end of his life and he said, I'm just going to write it all down. I'm just going to give them everything. And he did, you know. But also, you know, people have got all these really horrible things to say about Aleister Crowley. But in a way, even when you read the Book of Thought, now, I think just for me personally, because I've been practicing spirituality for quite a while, and you know, I've definitely, I'm a Reiki master, you know, I'm into crystal healing and, you know, symbiology and astrology and numerology and all those type of things, and obviously the Tree of Life. So for me, it wasn't this experience that almost made me, you know, throw up from anxiety when I first, you know, got to read it. But still, so much to learn. I think what I'm just trying to say there is that don't be scared of by the Book of Thought, you know. A lot of people explain it as a lot of rambling that doesn't make sense, that is not very sequential. I really like the way that it's written. I feel that it's very to the point. It's very informative, and it gives you an ideas of where you can find other information. All right, but let us come back to the Tree of Life, the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. So the Tree of Life is about Kabbalah, basically. Okay, it is you can almost call it the manual of Kabbalah. So the Tree of Life it's a very simple thing, but it's also very in-depth, you know. So it's dual, and the universe is dual, and the Tree of Life is a depiction of the duality of life. All right. So you see these little circles that are over there, all over the place. Those are called keys. I'm not going to give you any funky names. I'm just going to give it very simple. Those are called keys, and they are connecting points. And then you have got the little lines that go all over the place. And there are 22 different connections that are available within this. Now, if you are even slightly familiar with tarot, you will start getting a bit of an aha sort of moment over here. And what that is speaking about is that with the tarot, with the major arcana in the tarot, what is also called the trump cards, there are 22 cards. So every card in the major arcana tarot deck is it's a line, it's a connection, basically, it's a possibility. So within the Tree of Life, now I don't want to scare you away, but within the Tree of Life, there is it really brings you the understanding of the 12 zodiac signs, the 7 ruling planets, and also what is called the 3 letters, or basically the mother letters, which is the 3 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So there's also, for each of these, there's a Hebrew letter, which is the Hebrew alphabet. So when you understand this, and again, I don't want you to overwhelm yourself, but when you understand this, what really begins to happen, it becomes like when you look at an astrology chart. Now, when you first look at an astrology card, it is gibberish. It's gibberish. It's really gibberish, you know. And it's overwhelming, and it seems like it doesn't make sense, and it can seem very ancient, hieroglyphic sort of in a way, which in many ways it really is, because remember, astrology was found yonks and yonks ago in Babylonian times. So it didn't even start with the Egyptians. You know, they just sort of like adapted it and stuff like that. Now, in direct alignment with all of that, because remember, the tree of life is it's a Kabbalistic practice. It's Jewish found, you know, it's Jewish refined. It's the Hebrew letters. It's all of those things really, but there's also strong correlations to that in, for example, Egyptian mythology. You know, there's so many things in life that just begin to make sense when you understand the tree of life, and I think. I'm going to give you a very simplified explanation of this. You know, obviously, when I do coaching, the tree of life is about an hour and a half sort of like explanation breakdown, but then that is preceded by like 5 other hours, you know, and then that 5 hours is sort of like preceded by another 5 hours, you know, so it sort of like builds on top of each other. Still not trying to scare you, because there's no reason to be scared, all right? The tree of life is something that we don't usually, not always, but usually get upon, you know, first instance. And that is okay, because it is a lifelong practice. And the thing about it is that the more you look at it, the more you see in it. So it's not sort of like you have reached this and this is it. You know, it's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, and the more you get, the more your understanding expands, and the more your understanding expands, the more you're able to make more connections, and it becomes very natural to you. All right, but when we really look at it, technically speaking, life on Earth, we are number 10, and everything starts and starts on the top. All right, so let's look at the story of creation, and the interesting thing about, you know, when you really begin to look into things like Kabbalah, start to look into the tree of life, you really start to look into practices like energy healing, like Reiki, even crystal healing, definitely the tarot, all of those sort of things. The more you look at all those different modalities, the more they start to tie in with one another. And it very much comes back to the tree of life. And it will even take you back to things like the Torah, most definitely. It will take you back to the Quran. It will take you back to the Bible. That's how amazing it is, you know. So the point of creation is here on top, all right? So I'm going to put this down a moment. So with the point of creation, now this might be a bit of a big concept to grasp, but I'm going to try. I'm going to see if I write you something down, if you can maybe try and make some sense of it. If you do, it's great. And if you don't, I always say this to my students, if you get it, it's fine. If you don't get it, it's also fine. All right? Literally, it's fine. It really, really is. Because as you go along, sometimes you go like, oh, so that is what the person was speaking about. And it's when you allow your mind to open and to ponder that you sort of start getting the information coming to you. Okay? So in the beginning, there is nothing. There's nothing. All right? Now, in order for something to be something, it also has to be something else. Something cannot be called nothing, because if you just call it nothing, there has to be the concept of something. Because if there's not the concept of something, there cannot be the concept of nothing. It's the same thing with light and dark. You can't really say that something is all dark if the concept of light doesn't exist. Because if the one doesn't exist, then the direct opposite can't exist either. So life goes into all different directions, but we look at it in the sense that there is the nothingness, but in order to be nothing, it has to be something. So now you call it sort of, and I'm not going to give you the descriptive terms because the descriptive terms are going to confuse you. But so then in order for there to be then, so this nothing is no longer nothing because now it is two different possibilities, which then goes into two different directions. So then you begin to label the nothing, which now has to be something, and then it goes into two possible directions. So it's a possibility and a possibility, but it's not yet connected. It's just a possibility. The circle isn't completed, so to speak. Okay? Now, in order to complete the circle, you need to connect that. And so here you're already looking at 3-4 different tarot cards, the more you get to understand that. All right, you will actually see, for those of you that understand that know words of the tarot, they're from 1 to 2. I don't know if you can see this. It gives you the Fool, and then from 1 to 3, so you would think that so 1, 2, you would imagine that 1, 2, that it should go from 2 in a different direction, but because that's sort of just a possibility going one direction, yes, it can go this way, but then if it goes back to 1 again, then it completes the circle, but it's sort of, there's no room for expansion because it's the same thing. There's no more to it than it's just that. So 1, 2, and then you need something to connect it in the Empress. So whilst we sometimes think of life just going forward, the Tree of Life takes it backwards. So it goes from upwards to downwards, which is really the journey of creation. And then when it gets to the end, number 10, so some of you in tarot may know that number 10 is sort of like the cycle of completion. This is why it's a cycle of completion, because the tarot is built on the Tree of Life. It is a literal picture, like pictorial, the sort of portrayal of the Tree of Life. Okay? And so you get at certain points, for example, in tarot, number 5 can be quite a challenging position, whereas number 4, for example, is a stable position, and there's reasons for that. But then everything comes together in the number 6. And some of you may have heard before in tarot that people say that number 6 is it's the number of possibility. You turn 6 around, becomes number 9. So it's about quick possibility, quick changes. Things can take many different directions. It can be easy. It doesn't have to be so difficult. Everything isn't that straight and forward, because when you look at number 6, it's in the middle. Everything is coming together here. All right? And with everything being together, and I think that is the real power of the number 6, and you get it there with number 9 as well, but especially with number 6, is that whereas with 1 there were so many options, with 6 it's a coming together. So it's a space of going forward, but it's also a space of saying, well, maybe I need to revisit that and revisit that. Maybe let's see some justice is something that needs to be equaled over here. Maybe with the Hermit, do I need to take some rest before I go forward? And so in a sense, it might seem like going backward, but it's actually moving forward, because it's about taking responsible, inspired action, or moving forward, Death card, which means it's about the release of a whole lot of things in order to be open to something new. All right? Or you can go in the Devil direction, which is also about releasing, but whereas the Death card is more of a full release, the Devil is sort of like the release of what's inside of you, the things that are holding you back, the introspection that we need to do, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So the Tree of Life really is that journey of tarot, and I would really say that this is a very good book to buy. I've checked it out on Amazon, and it was like $10.49, so like $11 basically for a hardcover. Today is October the 11th, 2022 that I saw it available over there, so you can definitely find it there on Amazon. And this book, even though in some ways it does sort of go into all different directions, which can be a little bit confusing initially sometimes, but it really explains quite a lot about the tarot. And it is a very, a lot of times when people explain tarot, they explain it like this is what it is. This book gives you the sort of like the dual possibilities, because nothing is really set, set in stone. In the same way that the Tree of Life can sort of go in any direction, in the same way life can go in any direction. So the thing about being so scared with tarot that is going to tell you it's definitely this and it's definitely not that, a tarot reader is never really going to be definitively be able to tell you that, because life goes in different directions. And even, you know, even I can almost say like the rules don't apply for the tree of life, because even though you do this whole journey and you get to the end and it's a stage of like rebirth and renew, you know, you can just flip it over and go back to one again, which is sort of like the natural, so to speak, between inverted commas, sequence. But you can also work your way back up again. And sometimes that can be a good thing, and sometimes that can really also be us working against ourselves, which in many ways is almost like the tarot cards in reverse, that sort of thing, which is not a bad thing initially. Now, another two books that I want to show you, which is also really going to help you with that quite a lot. This is definitely advanced tarot coaching. It goes definitely into the thought direction. So if you're very new to this might really confuse you, but the one is definitely the Book of Thought. Now, the Book of Thought is originally ancient Egyptian concept. It's people don't really believe that it's an actual physical book. It's sort of like a sense of a spiritual alignment that you reach, where the knowledge of the universe is available to you. You tap into that allness sort of thing. And also when you do study Kabbalah, there's the different levels that you study through, and it's really for you to get to that level of pure enlightenment. And the amazing thing about pure enlightenment is that when you know everything, you also realize that you know everything, and you also know nothing, because everything is nothing, you know. And so just to also be clear, I think I said this already, but a lot of times people will say that, you know, the tree of life is really tarot, whereas tarot is actually the tree of life, or the two are sort of interchanged for one another, because the tree of life is a concept, and tarot is the portrayal of that concept. Now, just very, very quickly, with the other cards of the tarot. So remember, when you look at a tarot deck, you get the trump cards or the major arcana cards, which are 22 cards. Then you get the 10 minor arcana cards, and then you get the court cards, which are normally page, knights, queens, and kings. It's a little bit different in Thought Tarot, but not that important that you look at it like that. There are some slight changes and alterations that have been made in practices like Rider-Waite, for example, which has really been purely to protect some information which needed to be protected at the time. So it's not really about deceiving you, as so many people like to so passionately tell everybody, you've been deceived. No, you haven't. You've actually been protected. And in many ways, a lot of times when you look at these ancient societies, not all of them, not by the slightest means, but many of them, you know, preserved information that they understood was necessary, but that maybe humanity wasn't quite ready for. And a lot of that information has gone lost, you know. So with the Golden Dawn, for example, even though it was so closed with only like, you know, initiates and that sort of thing, it really was about protecting something which Crowley then speaks about in the Book of Thought. Now, the Book of Thought, as I said, my personal experience with the Book of Thought has been that I really, really enjoyed it. But I would probably say that, you know, if I was brand new to tarot and I first looked at the Book of Thought, I think my brain would have melted down quite a little bit. I mean, even with this. Now, I just want to let you know, with this portrayal of the Tree of Life, I just want to let you know that in this specific book, it doesn't really give you the best sort of breakdown of it, which initially piqued my interest, but didn't by any means give me the answers that I needed. But I highly recommend you start with this book, especially if you're new to tarot. It gives you so much that you don't get in other resources. Okay, Book of Thought, it really, really breaks down the Tree of Life. And the thing is that you don't have to remember everything. And another book that is very great to that, because, you know, people do find the Book of Thought so overwhelming, is Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thought Tarot by Lon DeMillo DeKitt. I've got the new edition, which is the 4th edition. This book is gold. A lot of people recommend that you read the Book of Thought first, and then you read the Thought Tarot, Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thought Tarot. But for me, what just basically happened is I ordered both these books online, and this one arrived before this one. So I had sort of like a good, almost like week and a half with this one first. And I read this book from cover to cover, blew my mind, gave me so much clarity and understanding on tarot that I didn't have as a person who was, a considered person who kind of considerably knows quite a lot about tarot. So I read this book from cover to cover, from beginning to end. And when I was done, I flipped it around and I read it from cover to cover again. With this book, with the Book of Thought, what any book really has got to do with Thought Tarot, you're not going to initially get everything the first time around. And you can read that book 10 times. The Book of Thought. You can read it 10 times. Even the book, the Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thought Tarot. And you'll get something new every time. And the reason for that is because your own consciousness expands. Okay. So I would actually read Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thought Tarot first, because the concepts in here are huge, but it's written from a point of view of a person that has got a slightly more modern approach when it comes to writing. But then even the Book of Thought, I personally, many people may disagree with me, but I feel that it's very well written. And while a lot of people will say to read the Book of Thought first and then read Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thought Tarot, that will then give some clarity, I personally am actually grateful that I read this first and then went to the Book of Thought. Because even though Understanding Arthur Crowley's Thought Tarot by Londa Miller the Kid, it's an attempt to demystify the Book of Thought for you. And so it explains concepts to you, which you get. So by the time you get to the Book of Thought, you get those concepts, and then they don't sort of throw you around the place, all over the place. So what I think is really, really great, I just want to be clear, you don't have to buy this book. The only reason why I'm recommending this book is, once again, because it does speak about so many aspects. It has a lot of things with the zodiac houses, and I really thought that I understood the zodiac houses and astrology as it pertains to tarot, but I didn't. And to me it's always exciting when I get that. But this is the main reason why I'm recommending that you get this book. And if you can maybe get something like this somewhere else, that is really, really great as well. You can maybe, I've sort of taken all my little pencil scribblings out there, and sometimes I write with pen and books. I like having my own books so I can make my own notes, but this is something that you can really print out, make it really, really large, and sort of then just look at it. And what I want you to look at, and I don't want you to confuse you too much, but think of the Tree of Life as a 3D sort of unfolding. So it is something that has width, height, and depth. So you can almost think of it as having 4 sides, So it's not all just straight down. It's like a 2-dimensional thing. And so you get the 4 elements coming in there, which is air, earth, fire, and water. And what's also really fantastic, especially when you look at the journey of creation, is when you see that the earth element is actually treated as a very not separate element from the first 3 elements, from air, water, and fire, but as a consequential element, which makes it part of it. Like we as human beings are a consequential element of creation, of the story of life, and everything begins with us and everything ends with us, but nothing really ever ends, because everything always just is. It's like I always say to people when they speak about past loved ones, or like psychic development, for example, I say you can be taught how to tap into these energies, and that is very much what Thought Tarot is about. It's about understanding who you actually are, the essence of who you are. It's one thing to say that you are part of the universe and the universe is part of you and we are all one and it's all oneness and all connection, but it's a very different thing when you really grasp that and you get to really see that, and things like the Fibonacci cycle, for example, begins to take on a whole different new meaning, which is something I also like to make videos of. And what I like so much about this coaching, sometimes people say to me, why do you just tell everybody everything? And it's because I want to share with you. And even if you do decide to take coaching with me, you know, when we put things in sequence in coaching, it's so incredible. And actually, fact, I went to coaching because in many ways, you know, you're not able to just make videos and explain everything. You need that sort of sequence, that sort of structure. Um, if you are really, really brand new to this and you really want to learn, something that might initially interest you is possibly something like my free Oracle card reading course. It's just over an hour. I think it's about an hour and 20 minutes. It's on the Udemy platform where you get lifetime access to everything. So if you buy my training there, you have lifetime access and you can always reference back. So I think that's a nice one because it's free. You can see, am I really into cards? Am I into divination? Is this something I might be interested in? Maybe get yourself like a deck of Oracle cards, or if you already have, you know, see how you feel about it. Is this your vibe or not? And if you do, then, or maybe, you know, then you might want to go from there, or maybe you're ready to then maybe take my step-by-step tarot reading course, which it's about 10 hours long. And even though it's very detailed, it's those fundamental foundational understandings that you need to, well, not need to have, but will really benefit you to grasp if you do go into, you know, something like the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life coaching is not in my step-by-step tarot reading course. It's in my advanced tarot coaching for a very definitive reason. But once you have the base understanding, you can first of all become a full-time reader from that, and you'll be able to really, you know, you'll be able to rock those readings out like nobody's business. So it's not that I'm holding out on you. It's just that sometimes it's better to just know a portion of information, to acclimatize yourself to that, become one with that, and then move on to the more of a greater understanding of the oneness that you've always been. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can always check that out. But the Tree of Life is a beautiful, beautiful thing. It is really, really amazing. And I look forward to make more of this sort of videos for you. So if you do find this helpful, you know, do let me know in the comments if there's maybe another area that you want me to speak about. Same as you, I'm an internal student. I share what I learn. But if there's anything more specific that you're interested in, I'd be more than happy to go into that area for you as well. So from my heart, namaste, love and light. I'm going to finish my coffee. I've got about 25 minutes left. Then I'm going to do my regression hypnosis session. So I wish you all the best, and I see you around soon. Ciao, ciao, ciao.